You gotta be like $1,000 a month, like that's crazy.
And I'm paying, I think, over $150 more per month.
BGE is the true scammers of Baltimore City.
They will not fix my fucking tree.
You know, everything is high, and people live off of fixed income.
My experience with BGE is absolutely terrible.
Like, of course they're a conglomerate.
Look here, man, BGE raping everybody out here.
That's the center of a hearing happening right now at Baltimore City Hall, where BGE representatives are answering questions from council members.
I'm David Lapp. My title is Maryland People's Counsel, and our office is the statutory, by law, the representative of residential utility customers. The Office of People's Counsel is an independent state agency, and we represent utility customers, residential utility customers, in all matters relating to utilities. So that means being involved in cases before the Maryland Public Service Commission, which sets utility rates and generally regulates and supervises the public utilities. We also are involved in federal regulatory bodies and in the courts. We also have a consumer assistance unit that provides assistance to individual consumers. So BGE's rates have gone up recently, but they've been going up over time. So what we're seeing now are sort of the consequences of really drastic rate increases that have been going on for the last 5 to 10 years, or even a little bit longer. What we have happening, it's sort of like the frog in slowly warming then boiling water. These rate increases have been going on for some time. We've been calling them out, opposing them at least in part, raising the flag about growing rates. And what we saw this winter is people really caught on to it, in part because we had colder weather, so consumption was up. But really, it's those rate increases that have really escalated utility bills this past winter, whether it be for gas in particular, but also for electric customers as well.
My BG&E story is that it went from $200 to $600.
1 month my BG&E was $250 and now it's $555.
So let me tell you about Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. These mofos upped our bill so much. So my bill was about, I'm gonna say, $1,200. Me being me, I was putting something on it. Wednesday, I get home, they cut me the fuck off. I paid my reconnection fee, and they cut me back on at like 2:30 in the morning. But for them to even cut it off, it's crazy.
I live in a row house like a lot of people in Baltimore. And this winter was pretty cold, but as you guys know, probably row houses generally tend to be insulated because they're in a row. I have budget billing, so my rates were consistent throughout the year until they switched it, and I'm paying, I think, over $150 more per month than I was last year, and there were not a whole lot of things that we changed. In fact, we tried to keep the temperature lower. I bought robes for everyone who lives with me. We all were wearing slippers around the house. So we were doing as much as we could to conserve energy in general, not just for finances.
I pay so much to live in the city. My taxes are insane. I know I pay more than people in California. I have checked the numbers. I have also utilized ChatGPT, which has pulled information. I'm paying so much in taxes, it's insane. My bill used to be good, but then it went up, and I know my bill was good because my house is big compared to other people's houses in the city. And I would tell people my numbers, and they would be like, wow, that's so good. And I was like, yeah. Then mine went up. I was paying maybe like $90. Maybe if it was bad, like $150 to $200. And my numbers are light, and I was like, whatever, that's fine. That shit went up to $600. From $90 to $200, $600. My taxes went up. They told me they were not taking care of the the plumbing or whatever. Y'all need to figure that out. I gave you so much money. Where did it go?
BGE has been the best company in Greater Baltimore when it pertains to doing business with Black certified firms.
They make money by actually spending more money. As long as they can get that spending approved by regulators, it goes into rates, and that increases, their profits for investors ultimately. And so if they can have strategies where they think they can be successful at convincing the state, either through the legislature or through the Public Service Commission, that they need to do this spending, then that's a successful business strategy. There's a lot of law in our area that says what a reasonable rate is, at least in theory. So a utility comes in, they take the first step. They say, we want a rate increases. So we had an electric utility that didn't come in for a rate increase for about 20 years. Because, normally a utility makes investments. If you think of a utility, utilities operate more like finance companies. People think utilities, they're wearing hard hats, they've got people on the lines or people digging up the streets and doing stuff. But a lot of those costs are operating costs. They recover those costs on a dollar for dollar basis. But where they really make their profits is by investments in capital infrastructure. So if they can, instead of like doing a quick repair, if they can say, well, we want to actually replace that pipe or that infrastructure instead of repairing it, that replacement, that is a capital investment, and that goes into their rate base, which is multiplied by their rate of return. Sorry for getting a little into the weeds here, but so they want to, the utility is actually making loans to customers, sort of like a mortgage company. So utility, they replace, BGE is spending on gas infrastructure about $1.25 million every day. That's the capital investment. So if you think about that as a mortgage, and the utility being in the business of selling mortgages, except it's also deciding, in part, has a lot of influence over how many mortgages are bought, and it wants to sell as many mortgages. So right now, BGE is spending about $1.25 million a day. That's the capital investment. So if you buy a house, right, you have the principal. When you make your payments on the house, you have your principal, and then you have the interest. And the interest is where the mortgage company makes its money. And it's also how the utility makes its money. They do the capital investment. It's recovered over a long period of time, a lot longer than a mortgage usually. It depends on the asset, depends on the life of the asset. If it's a truck, it'll be 10 years maybe. If it's pipes, it might be 40, 50, 60, 70 years. But that whole time, customers are paying off a little bit of the initial investment. So a little bit of that $1.25 million a day is paid off in rates, but a lot of it is just sitting there collecting, and the utility is collecting interest on it. The rates for other utilities haven't gone up as much. And so you can see, even though they're providing, essentially the same service. So you can see what's partly at play here is a business strategy of the Exelon utilities, of which BGE is one.
Generally, Maryland has an acute imbalance between electricity supply and demand from customers.
Plus, customers are paying to keep some power plants set to retire online.
Customers have to pay the owner of those power plants, Talon Energy, a certain fee called the reliability must run. And they're going to have to pay that every month until the power plants retire.
The chairman of the Public Service Commission released a statement saying, quote, the commission took these actions to mitigate the impacts felt by customers as a result of higher than expected energy costs, coupled with potential high usage in the coming months. In response, BGE says, in accordance with the order, adjusted residential supply rates will go into effect Sunday.
BGE is supportive of solutions that can help bring down this price, can help increase in-state generation.
I know our customers, your viewers, they're really struggling right now. There's a lot of frustration. There are higher energy bills. There's higher bills all over the place. So we understand the frustration, and it's completely understandable. January and December were very cold months. And so that means the usage, the amount of energy people use, is much, much higher. Interestingly enough, the most energy consuming thing you can do in your home is heat. So as the usage goes up, the bill also increases. It affects three different parts of the bill. It affects the distribution portion, which is the piece that BGE controls. This is our investments that we make to ensure safe, reliable, and secure energy is delivered to your home. It impacts the supply portion. So this is the part that's on the bill, but doesn't come to BGE. This is more the piece that goes to the people who produce the natural gas or the electricity, and that also went up. In fact, their rates, also, their costs went up 30% because of supply and demand. More demand because it was so cold. And then there's some other energy assistance programs from the state, like Empower Maryland. This is our energy efficiency programs that are aimed to help provide subsidies so that we can meet the state's greenhouse gas emission goals.
And things we running into as developing properties is BGE is very slow. It can have your project 6 months just to bring an electric meter. And that causes your chaos as you're in development. You know what I mean? That's the main part. You've been your rough end part. And that holding up the city from really getting where they want to be for its real estate investment in these dilapidated neighborhoods. The thing about it, they have such a monopoly, and they can just do what they want. You know what I mean? Because we look like we dependent on them. And I think the powers to be are backing them.
I get a bill every month. I pay my bill on time. No conflicts, no nothing. I have to pay double the amount on BGE because they go by, I live in a complex. So the ratings are real high. Like a person leave their gas and electric on all day, we still, in the complex, we still gotta pay for that. We shouldn't have to suffer for somebody else. It's a mistake. So where's the justice at for BGE? Nowhere.
Gas infrastructure spending, as that drives rates up, and as the technologies are available for customers to leave the gas system, replacing all their home appliances with electric appliances, and then they're not paying any of the gas costs anymore. They're off the gas system. That shifts costs to those customers who are still on the system. And that's going to hurt low-income customers the most because they more often rent, and they might not have the upfront cost to buy all new appliances, or it's going to take them more time to buy new appliances.
My bill went from $500 to $2,500. $500 to $2,500. We don't even keep all the lights on in the house throughout the day. We cut everything off. I compared my bill to my neighbor's bill, not even close. We called them, and I'm like, why is my bill $2,500? They said, oh, well, we upped the fee to deliver the gas to your house. To deliver the gas to my house? Motherfucker, I can pick it up. What the fuck you charging me that much money to drop it to my house? They said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't offer you an extension to pay it.
Because we did make changes, so we don't really use the stove. We brought air fryers, because it's really the gas that's higher than electricity right now. So we try to switch everything over to electric. It didn't help. It's still high. We literally still get a turn off notice every month. We'll pay half because that's how you got to work in the economy today. You really can't pay nothing off all at once. Everything is on a bi-weekly basis because you either buying food or you paying bills. Like, that's just the life that we live right now.
Well, I'm actually looking at getting mini splits in my house. But that is something that, since I am paying a mortgage on my house, I can use the equity on my house to do that. I don't think that that's always an option, especially for people who are like renting. And they're also very, very expensive. I'm hoping that I will eventually see my rates go down.
So when I bought my house recently in November 2024, I wasn't prepared for what the hell happened with my bill. I was used to working I was in Ellicott City before, and in Ellicott City, my bill prices in the apartment were closer to like $100. But when I started living on my own in a townhome, pretty much the bills tripled, and it was like $400. And then at the worst part, it got to like $700 for all my bills and utilities. Mind you, I was unplugging. I was like, energy saver, everything. It just wasn't working.
I mean, the state does have energy assistance funding. Some of that is through the federal government. Some of that is through, other money that comes in through the state through different policies. The renewable portfolio standard Maryland has. There's alternative compliance payments. Some of that money comes back and supports low income. There's the regional greenhouse gas initiative that brings in money, and some of that money goes to support low-income households. The other thing I should mention about low-income, folks, is that we recently filed a petition to address termination regulations and policies of the utilities, deposit requirements, that sort of thing. So, we are working to, try and make sure that the system works fair for low-income customers, because, there are some policies that we think the utilities employ that sort of, cause the hole that customers face in terms of being able to afford their energy bills even worse.
I pay my BGE every month. It's fine. I hate the BGE people that's trying to knock on your door constantly to get you to switch over. I think there's a lot of programs to help with your BGE, from churches to community action agency. My bill's about $100 a month, between $90 and $100, and I live alone. I love BGE more than Comcast. Oh, it's easy as anything. If you can read, you can find them. If you can walk, you can find them. They're there for you. And the only thing you need is a bill or a late notice. The Department of Social Service will pay your BGE in full once a year, or your rent. You choose it. If you're late and you got a payment, they'll pay it for you in full, one time a year. So you gotta look for it. Increases, of course, increases everywhere.
Yes, they knocked my bill down by $100. It depends on your income.
Okay.
And, I have a medical condition where I have to be on a breathing machine half the time, so my lights won't get turned off anymore.
Gotcha. Now, who were you saying helped you get your bill lower? Who reached out to you again?
Healthcare for the homeless.
Healthcare for the
in
homeless?
my sister place. Yeah, Francisco Center on Maryland Avenue. Then cafeteria headquarters on Cathedral Street. Beans and Bread. My Paul's Place. They all will help you with getting assistance if you need it.
I was living in the city, and my BGE bill, I got a deposit amount for $250, which I felt like was insane, because if somebody's just moving, why would you give them more expenses, So $250 was my deposit, and every month my bill was that $250 plus another $250. So every month my bill's coming at about $500 a month, every month. For at least a year, until I ended up moving from that location. When I moved from that location, they said, oh, my bill had went down because of budget billing. If you cut off budget billing, they charge you $600 to cut it off. It's ridiculous. If you want to end budget billing, they charge you a payout amount. It's almost like paying off a car.
As long as they can get that spending approved by regulators, it goes into rates, and that increases, their profits for investors ultimately. And so if they can have strategies where they think they can be successful at convincing the state, either through the legislature or through the Public Service Commission, that they need to do this spending, then that's a successful business strategy. It's not competing on price as a competitive business does. It's not competing on service as a competitive business would. It's basically, how successful can I be in persuading the state, through the regulators, to approve additional spending. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't spending that isn't necessary to serve customers. Customers benefit from utility infrastructure, but if they can get away with spending more than they need, or spending it faster, buying things that they don't need, not putting off investments. If you need a new roof on your house, but you just had to, fix, your kitchen or, some appliances, you might say, well, I can wait, to put that new roof on the house until next year because I just, made this investment. Well, utility has an incentive to, speed up those investments.
BGE's response before the Public Service Commission was they simply called my client's allegations spurious and outrageous.
Attorney David Banya represents 14 former BGE employees with serious allegations going back 4 years.
My clients allege that a gas pipeline inspector that worked for BGE was known to have been hanging out on his boat when he was supposed to be inspecting gas pipelines, and that he had been falsifying records for years.
I can't speak to whether there's corruption or anything going on like that, but I can tell you that utilities, they put a lot of energy into persuasion, into whether it be persuading the public about what they need to do, persuading regulators, or persuading legislators, policymakers. There's nobody else that can deliver gas to your house or deliver electricity to your house. And so customers can't walk away, or, it's very difficult. The reality is that, our small office with resources, we're one of the main entities to push back on those rate increases. And, there are challenges to doing that. There's what we call information asymmetry. We don't have all the information that they do. We have access, we do discovery to try and get more information on what they're planning to do, on their justifications for different projects. But it's a real challenge. There are time limitations in rate cases. And then there are these sort of rate-making constructs that, like BGE, the Exelon utilities have taken advantage of, that sort of change how rate making is done. You may have heard of multi-year rate making. That's one of the things that the Exelon utilities have taken advantage of, which really sort of changes the whole dynamic and shifts risks to customers and takes risks away from investors and makes our litigating a rate case to push back on unnecessary rate increases a lot more challenging. A lot of what we think we're seeing are strategies that BGE has taken advantage of in the state. One is a program to replace gas infrastructure, and that has, helped drive gas rates, to as you said, triple since 2010. They went up on January 1, 2025. They're going to go up again January 1, 2026, unless the commission, pulls that back. But similar has happened on the electric side, and the same sort of things have happened, for Exelon's other Maryland electric utilities, Delmarva Power and Pepco. And so those utilities, their rates have increased at annual growth. The annual growth of their increases has been greater than other utilities. So, for example, a customer of Washington Gas, another big utility that serves a large number of Maryland customers, about less than 10 years ago, Washington Gas's rates were higher than BGE's rates. Today, Washington Gas's rates for distribution service, that's the service that they make their profits from, those rates are now 46 cents a therm, which a therm is a measurement of gas, how much gas you use. So, a customer might use in the winter, they might use 100, 150, 200 therms, depending on how big their house is, and then that's being multiplied by the rate. So Washington Gas customers are paying a rate of 46 cents a therm this winter, while BGE's customers are paying 90 cents, or it's actually more like $1 once you add in some additional things to the distribution rate. So customers, outside of DC are paying, essentially, half the price for the same service as customers in Baltimore. And that's as a result, that's the result of the commission, BGE asking for approval for, infrastructure spending and winning that approval, whereas Washington Gas has not been as successful at, winning approvals for those rates.
The architectural integrity of this city to come together and support each other.
The utility counters that outside gas lines are safer and allow faster response in case of an emergency. BGE has been shutting off gas service to some customers who've refused the new gas lines and some were arrested in a protest last week.
At this point, there's been no response from the courts, but you can see that there is still work continuing here. We're on Warren Avenue in Federal Hill. Some of the residents are watching closely, and a number of people say their gas has been turned off.
The other thing is we encourage you, continue to pay on your bill. That helps it not get out of control.
I don't know how they're going to bring down the therms or whatever they need to do, but they need to do something because it's way too high.
When I say, man, they raise that joint to like 1,000, like, you feel me, like, and they send the people to your door to put up free light bulbs and stuff. Oh yeah, your BGE gonna be cheap, man. Later on down, like 3 months, your joint be like $3,000. You be like, God damn, crazy, man. Hard for Baltimore City, man.
I do think that they do a good job with the BGE assistance program, which is, I guess they allow you to apply for assistance like once a year. And they do try to help people with families. But honestly, I think they need to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis, and I don't think that they do that. I think that that's something that they could work on doing.
For the people like me, I'm a single mother, single working mother. I don't get no type of government assistance. I'm asking for help and for them to lower the cost of BGE right now. I need help. My babies need lights. If we don't get lights, then it's like a thing between lights or food. Or should I pay the light bill now, half the light bill now, and get half the food? It's a problem.
I use like the lowest amount of energy out of anyone in my neighborhood, and I still feel like it's too high. I don't know how to handle it, but you gotta hold them to higher standards. Like, they can't keep getting away with this stuff, man. Like, it's messed up.
You got to find out some type of supplemental plan here, whether it involves people getting back into the community just so they can get their bill paid. I think it's a great idea. I would do it, you know. That's what I think you should do, BGE. Get the people more involved to be more into your BGE, to even understand the billing aspect of it. It's ridiculous. I only make what? $1,200 every 2 weeks, and if the BG&E bill is coming in $400 or $500 for a 2-bedroom apartment, you do the math. It's not adding up. I'm paying for the whole building. That's whole building prices. Do better.
Stop trying to make the people that, like, companies profit. Actually care about people. Because, like, there's so many people in this community that are working their hardest just to afford their bills, and they can't. And they have 2 or 3 jobs, and like, y'all are just giving money into people who don't even care about the people. So like, we're the ones that are getting you in office. How about you give a fuck about us?
Some people in BGE should feel that if you've been a loyal customer, you should get a rating or discount with something, or some kind of credit towards your BGE bill. But I don't get none of that.
And the prices keep going up, and I'm gonna get a bill for $600. Y'all need to figure this out. I pay the taxes. I love living here. I love where I live. I live in the best spot. Why? Why is my stuff not working for the money I'm paying you? I'm paying you more than California.
I also didn't investigate into other alternative suppliers because what I was told, and this is hearsay, is that it's still BG&E that kind of, they use all of their everything and they're just kind of a billing thing. But I also had heard about people who, alternative suppliers had come around and basically just stolen their information and signed them up for a completely different company. And I kind of don't want that to happen.
I have heard about some of the alternative sources, but they all seem kind of scammy because somehow you end up owing BGE in the end.
It's an uphill battle. You know, we're a small office, and we don't, you know, we have lots of utilities in Maryland. You know, BGE is just one of them. You know, our resources are spread thin. But we hope that by, you know, adding transparency, we can bring attention to the issues. If people forget that the way they make their money is by convincing regulators that they need to spend money, getting it approved, you know, if people forget that that's a monopoly, that's a problem.
It's all part of an effort by a coalition of local and state leaders. They're asking BGE pause Operation Pipeline replacement work. The PSC cancel the 2026 rate distribution adjustment, an average increase of 1.65% for gas and electric customers, depending on energy use, starting January 1st, as well as an end to multi-year rate hikes.
BGE has fought for multi-year rate cases for one reason: they drive profit.
BGE says they're enhancing the safety of their system with work that would happen whether there's a multi-year rate plan or not, which they believe offers transparency and certainty.
So we want to make sure that people understand. So education is an important part of, helping, to figure out how to go forward, helping people to understand, what utilities are, how they make their money. Now, utilities provide valuable services as well. So it's not about just like saying, they're bad companies, but they have private interests. And so we have to be ready to, to step in and regulate. The reason why we have utility monopolies is because, way back, we learned, a century ago that customers are hurt by having, multiple companies building power lines and running them through the street. Like, that means not only do you have the eyesores of multiple power lines that you don't need, you only need one, but it also means that every one of those companies, let's say there's 3 or 4 companies running power lines, they're recovering those costs over, just a subset of customers when you only need one company, and that's going to lower costs for customers. So the point is that that's a monopoly service. Providing the delivery of electricity is a monopoly service. But, for example, electric vehicle charging stations are not monopoly services. So we had a commission program that we opposed here that allowed utilities to build electric vehicle charging stations. We have many companies, whether it be Tesla, Electrify America, ChargePoint, there's a bunch of companies that build those vehicle charging stations, and it's a competitive market. If a utility can get into that market and all the risk is on ratepayers are funding those charging stations, that's not fair to the other competitors in the market. And it's also not fair to ratepayers, especially ratepayers who, don't have electric vehicles. It's going to be sort of a subsidy of wealthier, perhaps wealthier households who are buying the electric vehicles and benefiting from those charging stations, whereas, customers without electric vehicles. That's just one example, but we see these efforts, in many different areas where the utilities are trying to work their way into other markets that aren't necessarily what we call natural monopoly markets, like the electric line, running down the street. So, that's part of the discussion. That's, people need to understand, a utility should be confined to those core monopoly functions, and when they're allowed to do other stuff, it's not only bad for ratepayers because it increases rates for stuff that ratepayers shouldn't necessarily pay for, but it also harms our system of competition in other areas. Absolutely, there needs to be a broader conversation, and we've tried to help facilitate that broader conversation through some of the reports. And 2 years ago, we filed a petition for the commission to hold a proceeding on the future of gas. Is about what does our future energy systems look like? We know we have climate to be concerned about. We know that in order to meet the state's climate goals, that we can't continue to rely on gas to heat our buildings the way we do now. And with the investments that are being made, and it's $1.25 million a day in capital spending, that turns into much more than that when you add in all the interest that's paid on that $1.25 million a day. And but those costs go into rates and where they sit for decades and decades. And aside from climate policy, it's important to understand that we have electric appliances now, modern electric appliances, electric heat pumps that are 3-4 times more efficient than the most efficient gas furnace. And you buy an electric heat pump, you're buying a replacement for your furnace, but you're also replacing your air conditioner because they're sort of inappropriately called heat pumps, but they actually cool your house as well, more efficient than air conditioning. So those technologies have really improved over the last few years. We see across the country, heat pumps, electric heat pumps are now outselling gas furnaces. In other states, they've moved, more quickly than Maryland, but that's going to grow, over time. And then you have people concerned about, safety of gas, having gas in your home. I worked from home yesterday, and we had fire trucks blocking the street, all kinds of emergency equipment because they were fixing the road, and somebody busted a gas pipe. You could smell gas all over the neighborhood. Well, we see stories of, they're not infrequent of, explosions, people dying, as a result of explosions. So electricity doesn't have those same risks, right? It doesn't explode like gas does. A lot of that is due to human error as well. It's not old pipes, it's just human error. A maintenance worker, making a mistake, a truck or something hitting a meter, that sort of thing. That's, people are notice those concerns. And just the health issues of using gas, burning gas in your home. We know that there are, harmful emissions from, burning gas, gas stoves, that sort of thing, and people are getting more concerned about that. And, over time, we expect gas consumption to drop, which is going to escalate those rates. So we've asked for this future of gas proceeding to look at all these infrastructure costs and whether it makes sense for, utility customers who are captive, to the utility to be, basically taking the risk on these gas investments that are going to last a really long time. We've done these studies on, compiling these costs on what the gas utilities are spending on gas infrastructure. Across the three largest Maryland gas utilities, it's about $750 million that'll be spent this year. That's, probably about half the cost of the Key Bridge, 1 year, just on gas distribution infrastructure. A huge amount of money. Should the state be committing that much money, every year to gas infrastructure? We think that's a question that needs to be raised. But we would not know without our doing these reports that is how much the state is spending. So the first thing before you decide on what policies need to be taken up to address issues, you have to know what is going on. And, we think that transparency that we've added by saying, hey, this is what's being spent is an important part of that discussion. And so we're trying to get that conversation going.
Fight the power.